6:40 in Trinidad and Tobago. We're staying focused on the Judith Jones report in relation to the safeguarding of children in community residences and child support centers in Trinidad and Tobago. And again, just remember that in the report it talks about urgency, and this was presented to Cabinet in December of 2021. Just look at that timeline for yourself and remember the word urgency. But let's get a perspective from Sister Arlene Greenidge, who's no stranger to our environment. We usually talk about important events that are happening at the St. Dominic'S Children's Home. She's with us now. Sister Arlene, very good morning to you. Thanks for joining.
Good morning, Fazeer.
What is your reaction to all of this?
Well, my immediate reaction is I must admit that we here at St. Dominic'S are somewhat demoralized by a lot of what is in the not simply what is in the report, but in terms of its very design. On a positive note, I must say that we were interviewed twice by members of the investigative team, and I mean those interviews went well in terms of, we did not feel that we were being, spoken down to very often. It felt like a conversation, so we were able to share our experiences and challenges. One of the things that we found most concerning during reading the report is the fact that, and it's clearly stated, that the report does not aim at establishing the truth of the allegations of abuse, but to acknowledge the allegations, et cetera, et cetera. For us, that is an area of concern, and we really regret that we weren't given an opportunity to respond to the allegations. There were about 4 or 5 allegations made against St. Dominic'S Children's Home, and we did not have an opportunity to respond to those allegations.
So, Sister Arlene, if you would allow me, forgive my rudeness. You talk about the specific allegations in the report, and let me be straightforward. I haven't read the details of the report, but here's an opportunity for you now, if you would care to address those specific allegations.
That is one way to go, but I want to share further concern for you, and that's that I think in terms of moving forward, because we've been here before, Fazeer, and you know that.
Yeah.
We've had allegations, leveled against children's homes, ourselves included, and one of the issues has always been the lack of a clear understanding of the complexities of the issues that we face as community residences. First of all, all the children's homes were lumped together, and the experiences and the challenges faced by the homes described as state homes, those who are funded by subventions, 4. Something like 3 now, funded by subventions. The context in which we operate is very different. So for example, we here at St. Dominic'S Children's Home, we have been struggling with industrial action being taken by members of public officers on staff. We have the major governance issues that are pertinent to a lot of the stuff that was raised in the report. And so one of our first concerns really is that all the homes listed were painted with the same brush, but the context is really very, very different, very peculiar for the state-funded homes. And we are concerned that if we don't take cognizance of that as we move forward, the real issues as they pertain to the state-funded homes, St. Dominic'S Children's Home, St. Jude's, St. Mary's, that those issues may not be, we speak about urgency, that those issues that are long-standing, may again be lost in emotion, and in treating with the real issues that face other children's homes that operate within a different context. So that's one of the first concerns. And so, without getting into the specifics of the allegations, what I would say is that the situations in which we operate. So, for example, let me be a little more specific, Fazeer.
Please.
The state homes are partially staffed in our case, by public officers. The public officers are recruited by the Statutory Authority Services Commission. And what I'm saying here is in the report. So I'm not talking out of school, right? It's in the report. It's mentioned in the report. But in terms of the contextualizing of what the allegations, there isn't that clear link need. So we here at St. Dominic'S Children's Home have been struggling Because we are really on board and making significant strides in terms of the modernization of our system, one of the issues that we have been struggling with is the need to separate from the statutory authorities, because the boards of state-run homes, or rather state-funded homes, need to be given the full authority and power to make decisions and to manage staff, discipline staff as well, within those agents, within those state-funded homes. That currently does not exist. And so we have been involved in this separation process about a year and a half ago. In April of 2000, the government, the cabinet approved the separation, but it is still winding down, you know? So we still caught up in this maelstrom, and at the heart of it is industrial action. So you can well imagine what industrial action within a children's home setting, the impact that has. And so one of the incidents, one of the places in which St. Dominic'S Children's Home is mentioned, refers to an article of an incident that was reported a little under a year ago. And it speaks about the children being caught in a double bind. And that's exactly the situation we're operating with. That was a phrase that we used. They're caught in a double bind because, of course, you have the caregivers, many of whom are public officers and caught up with this industrial action. And you have the board and management team who are responsible for policy development and protecting and safeguarding the children. These two entities are caught up in this industrial action, and the children are there in the middle. So it creates an environment, a condition. This is just one example. So the conditions in which we operate as state-funded homes is peculiar, and that wasn't adequately captured in the report, and therefore the allegations that have been listed, allegations that were made as, and I quote, the aim was not to establish the truth of the allegations. So that context, the conditions in which we operate, that has not been fully ventilated. And if they're moving forward in making the decisions as to how we can repair and how we can make our places of service safer for children, if that isn't underscored, our real concern is that this separation and this protesting and the whatever will continue. And therefore, the source, what's at the heart, what makes the situation right for abuse to continue, that will continue.
And Sister Arlene, I appreciate the way you're contextualizing, because it sounds like a really dysfunctional environment right now. But yes. Could I ask you, and I know it will sound like an insulting question, but I have to ask you anyway. Are you here to make excuses for St. Dominic'S Home?
No. But what I want is that St. Dominic'S be treated fairly, because Mr. Fazeer, we're doing a lot of good work. We have made, in 2008, we embarked upon this change and transformation process. So a lot of what is there in terms of recommendations, and even more, we have learned a lot. And even in terms of mistakes that are made, and sometimes those mistakes, because I said this situation, it makes it possible for things to go wrong. But we have been able to respond with urgency, is your word, right? We have been able to be more responsive. We have been able to anticipate. But we also are mindful that a lot of it is systemic. And unless we treat with what is perpetuating the inefficiencies and the destructiveness, the harm that the system can cause, you will continue to blame children's homes, you'll continue to blame managers, you'll even continue to blame caregivers. But the system itself, in social work, we speak about the personal environment, but we can speak here about the organization and environment, and the environment in which we deliver these services, and we are delivering these services. I can talk for hours in terms of the progress that we have made, but you're quite right, the difficulties are there, and the difficulties wear us down. But we need to address these difficulties. And my point is, Fazeer, that I am concerned that if the state-funded homes, if that context is not properly, because the analysis has not been adequately done, if we do not understand how boards not having the ability, the power, the authority to discipline, to address issues around promotion, retention of staff, if the boards of these state-funded homes cannot do that, how can we systematically promote the well-being of our children? Added to it, Fazeer, I want to be able, if you'd allow me,
please,
to share a pet peeve of mine.
please.
We keep coming back to safeguarding and keeping children safe, as if keeping children safe is an end in itself. Keeping children safe is what allows us to do the work. The work is started, you know. The keeping safe is what makes it possible, because when children who are coming into care very often experience trauma and loss. When children and people are traumatized, they have to feel safe. We have to offer them hope. That's why and how they engage in the resolution and the change process. And if whatever compromises our ability to do that, compromises our ability not just to keep them safe, so that they can, also our ability to help them and the members of their family system do the work that they need to do in order to change their situation. So it is about change and development, not about safeguarding as the means. I want you to get me right. I am to the board totally submits. We here as Dominic'S totally support every component within that investigative report that speaks to safeguarding. We on board.
No, I understand the point that you're making, Sister Arlene. Don't get me, I fully understand. It's like me saying, you know, we should all let off fireworks because we started morning edition on time at 6 o'clock. That is a given. The safety of children in a children's home should be a given. That shouldn't be a matter that...
Should be. But safeguarding is not only the purview of the manager and the board. The other conditions. And I'm saying if the board cannot take responsibility, doesn't have the power, which is what exists now, does not have the power to discipline, to reward through promotion. In the public service, people are promoted on the basis of seniority. How could that support? How could that be conducive to the work that we are charged to do? So that's what I'm saying, Fazeer. These issues are peculiar to state-funded homes.
And therefore, Sister Arlene, before time runs out on us, you started the discussion by saying that there's a feeling of demoralization within the organization right now, but based on this report coming out. What are you hoping for moving forward? If we are to really move forward, and if we are to really, at least for what it's worth, take this report, understand the flaws, the right of reply, the absence of a right to respond to the allegations, take all those things into consideration.
The first thing we need to see, Fazeer, is that state-funded homes, boards need to be empowered. They need to have the power and authority to treat with staffing issues.
So what does the board do? What does the board actually do then?
Well, the development of what I'm saying is, in the midst of all of this, we have continued to make strides. That is because the board and the management team and members of staff, those who are engaged in the change process, have been working. We have service centers. We work with the family because we know the frustration we're speaking about is not only the frustration that comes about by being in the home. If children and young people, they don't want to be here. They want to be with their family. And unless and until there's hope that work is being done to resolve the situations, because they see here as even if here was a luxury resort, we see it. We do all kinds of wonderful work. The children here are in technical vocational training. They have tutors. They have all kinds of extracurricular activities. Well, before COVID, that is, you know, we have a lot of support benefactors who provide all kinds of resources. So even we don't depend purely on state-run funds from the state. The programs that we are running, we be doing individual. We have a clinical a behavioral wellness unit. We have case workers. We're working with the family. So we're doing good work. You know, we just had we just graduated our first cohort in terms of agriculture. So we're doing good work. But so the board is working. But what I'm saying is underpinning that is the challenges, and the challenges, a lot of the challenges have to do with issues that are peculiar because of the slowness to resolve key issues that have to do with the governance of our children.
And therefore, Sister Arlene, and I'm glad you've clarified it in that way. The same question I asked of our previous guest, Dr. Nixon. Are you hopeful that the publication of this report and the reaction to it will actually bring about the change that you're hoping for?
Well, yes, at Fazeer, one of our sisters used to say, God is right straight on crooked lines. So I am hoping to see the crooked lines that God right straight. Not only God, that God move in the hearts of those who can, that they expedite what needs to happen so that we can freely do the work that we are engaging. We have people who are supporting the work that we're doing. So, and not all the staff are fully engaged, but we carry as a burden. It's an obstacle, it's a hurdle, it's a pain. And it is so that is if that could come out of this Fazeer, that would bring us here such joy. It wouldn't take, I don't think it would take the moon and the stars. I don't think it's, and I don't even want to say maybe it's a lack of will. I don't know what it is. But why are we so slow in making this happen? And the next thing I don't want to waste the time. I don't want to not be able to say this.
Please.
We also have to look at how we classify the classification in terms of treating with children coming into the system. We're using words like chins, children need a supervision. Supervision doesn't come out and not care. What many of these young people who we are describing as chins need is rehabilitation and stabilization. So you bring them into children's homes, but they're not in a space where they could engage in the program. We have lots of programs, but they're not in a space where they could engage in those programs. Some of them are coming in, they use drugs, they're gang affiliated. So it's stuff that requires rehabilitation, stabilization. And those are services that are not available in community residences. So there are gaps, and they spoke about gaps, but I don't know if we captured all the gaps. And the languaging is sometimes not helpful. We need to understand the needs of children using a system where we look at the levels of care. So therefore we are able to provide appropriate placements because we know what this particular home, what level of care it is able to provide. So our very classification, how we are conceptualizing what the problems are. The problem is not more institution. The solution rather is not more institution. That's my next concern. We added more layers. More layers of institution is not necessarily going to get us where we want to go. If we're outcomes oriented, if we only consume with safeguarding, and do not get me wrong, safeguarding, as you say, is a given, right? If we are not outcomes oriented, what do we want for these children and families? And if that is not what we're working towards, if we stuck in talking about safety and safeguarding as an end and not as a means, it means that the real issue is not going to get addressed in terms of the change that needs to take place in these children's lives and in their families' lives. We're not going to do the work about interagency collaboration because children and families need help that's located in different ministries. So you need a help in education, you need a help in health, you need help in social development because they need wraparound services, they need housing. So if those agencies not talking to each other, how could we provide the help that these children need and their families to ensure that their stay in residential care is short term? Because as I said before, Fazeer, no matter how wonderful we make the setting, no matter what kind of beds and how many beds and whatever, no matter what programs we put in place, these children and young people want to be able to exercise their agency and they want family.
I hear you on that, Sister Arlene. Sorry to, and I know you're obviously getting very, very emotional, very passionate about this situation, and I fully understand why. This is, sorry that time has run out on us, but
yeah, because we're doing good work for Fazeer, and we want to be able to do better work.
And this is clearly a conversation that has to continue, and we want to thank you very much indeed for taking the time to be with us this morning. We really appreciate your contribution this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fazeer. Thank you for your
You're
listening.
more than welcome. Sister Arlene Greenidge of the St. Dominic'S home, just
Blessings.
highlighting another one of the issues, and in fact several of the issues that leave us wondering if this entire matter, as much as it's been highlighted over the past week or so, will ever really be dealt with in a real and meaningful way. It's 7 o'clock, time for the news, then we move into the second hour of Morning Edition.